will they know that they've been referred to a borrower that wants to short sell their property, or will the borrower have to reach out to that agent?
Right now, the customer will have to reach out. We're always very cognizant of concern with any privacy issues. Mm-hmm. Now, if the customer opts in to allow us to have that agent or those agents call them, then we will. But it's really up to the agent at this stage. The customer to make the contact with the agent at this stage.
So the customer will have an opt-in option so that we can make a direct referral to the agent?
That's right. We will ask them, here are 3 or 4 names of agents in the area. You can give them a call directly yourself, or if you would like, we can refer them to give you a call.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, this is brand new. I mean, has it started already, or is it still in the pilot stage?
It hasn't started. Now, Eric, you're going to probably recall that we use this tool today for customers who are just looking for an agent for a standard resale.
That's right.
We have that process in place. So now with short sale, we're just very cognizant of any concern around if we acknowledge that to an agent that it's potentially a short sale, that we've got some privacy issues there that we have to make sure that are considered by the customer. And if they opt in to allow us to have an agent call them, then that gives us the right to be able to do so.
No, in fact, thanks for reminding me, because you're right. We do have a tool like that. We get quite a few leads of people who are looking to buy a home, and they need to be pre-approved, and and it comes through our lead router system. So this is kind of an extension of that, then.
That's right. That's right. It's the same tool. We're just building it out to be able to support short sale referrals.
Well, that's really great news, especially for those who have been really focused on short sales. Right now, the typical agent gets a list of NODs or notice of sales, and they're knocking on doors, and that can be somewhat of a challenging situation. If you've ever done it before, it's sometimes the customers don't always respond appropriately, when they're knocked on the door. So
that's right. But you know what? I don't discourage them from continuing that because many times they may have more opportunities to reach somebody if they're knocking on the door, and may have better luck in reaching them than the servicer may. So I don't discourage that path to try to see if you can do more to get some short sale listings.
So the million-dollar question is how does an agent get on this short sale referral tool list?
Right now, it's a work in development. We have a project team that's working on it, and I'd say the best thing for any of the agents that have a relationship with your team and our agencies right now, stay in contact with them, because we're working closely with the agency project team to roll this out. And so I'd say stay in contact with your HMC group. It's not going to be beneficial for anyone to send me an email right now, for example, and say, I want to be on your short sale list, because we get a lot of that all the time now. But it's a work in development. I'd say there's probably going to be a process where we will do a reach out to possibly even some of the REO agents that we have in our network today, because some REO agents do manage short sales as well. A lot of them do, in fact. So we'll do an outreach probably to them first and say, if you have any experience in short sales, and we'll ask them, similar to what they do on an REO, to give us that information so we can validate the experience that they've had with short sale and probably start to roll this out in the pilot phase.
Well, that's exciting. So, JK, when we move to the pilot stage, so right now you're just in the formation, the stage of this. You haven't actually started to pilot it, or you are piloting it. Make sure I'm right.
We have not started the pilot yet.
Okay.
We do have a pilot going on right now, actually, with Equator. I'm sure a lot of the people on this call are familiar with that. We're hoping to roll out our Equator solution to manage our short sales that are coming into our inventory.
Okay.
And today we have a pilot with about 4,000 of the agents that we know are experienced in short sale. I'm sure many of them are on this call right now. And so through that process, we're identifying already some of the short sale agents that will be picked up as our approved database.
Okay, fantastic. So definitely we want to have you back. In fact, you're scheduled. We had 2 dates, the 31st and April 14th. Looks like we're going to go with the April 14th date, JK. So you can clear the March 31st date. So hopefully, if not by April 14th or some point in the future, we can have you back on to bring us up to date about the short sale pilot and how that's going and what additional changes have made. Because I'm certain that with the bank's effort to keep people in their homes, to make it a much more manageable process, and much more to keep the dignity of the borrower, of the homeowner in place while they're going through a very difficult time. It seems that the short sale opportunity may continue to grow, and there'll be even a greater opportunity for agents and participate in that than perhaps even in REO.
Great. I look forward to that follow-up.
So it's 11:22, and I know you have a hard stop at 10:30. I don't want you to miss your plane. So, operator, let's open up the lines for some Q&A. The rest of these talking points here about HAFA and proprietary short sales, we're going to cover on our next call. And so I want to encourage everybody to join the call on the 14th of April, hear JK again as we dive into some of the other bullet points here. Operator, let's give instructions for questions.
If you have a question at this time, please press the star then 1 key on your touch-tone telephone.
So, JK, while we're waiting for questions, I really appreciate you taking the time and share what's happening with the network. I think a lot of PAS agents would like to know what is our current network size right now? I mean, how many agents do we have, and where do we have perhaps the greatest opportunity? Maybe there might be a PAS agent who maybe want to move into another area, another state, if you will, where there's a greater opportunity.
Right now we have around 4,500 active agents in our database.
And where's the greatest need in the United States?
Right now we don't have a big need in California. We are expanding in areas in Florida. We've had some expansion in areas like Arizona. We've had some add-ons there, some pockets in Texas. The key thing to know whether or not we're adding agents, especially for brokers who may have national networks, is to start to watch maybe some of the delinquency trends, generally speaking, and then that way they will have an idea of what markets as an industry everyone is expanding into as foreclosure inventory might start to come over into REO. So best for the brokers to watch the late-stage delinquencies, especially as properties are rolling into foreclosure, to get an idea of where the next pocket of opportunity for adding agents might be.
Okay, great. Operator, do we have any questions?
Yes, our first question comes from Kevin. Your line is open.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi. Hi, this is Ruth. I work on the short sale processing side. Now, there's times where I'm going to come across a file, and because I'm fairly new to negotiations, who would I contact if I need to escalate the file? Is there a particular manager within her department under JK that I could turn to?
The best thing to do. The best thing to do first is generally the customer themselves, the person who owns the property today. If you are working on processing a file for the buyer for their financing, is that what you're referring to? I just want to clarify so I can answer your question correctly.
For the seller.
You're actually, I'm sorry, are you working for a mortgage company or for a real estate company?
For a real estate company.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's handling the processing end of a short sale transaction. They're representing the seller, and they're trying to get approval on a Wells Fargo short sale based on an offer apparently that has been made. And so she wants to know, how do we escalate this if we're not getting an answer or we're running out of time?
Got it. So I just wanted to make sure I understood the question so I could answer correctly. And I was going down that path but wanted to make sure. So if if you are working on a file for the seller, then the seller generally knows, our customer generally knows what's going to be required of them. And keep in mind, depending upon if that customer's loan has been sold to Freddie Mac or to Fannie Mae, whether it's an FHA loan or whether it be a private investor or a bank-owned asset, there are going to be slightly different, in some cases, big differences in the guidelines that we have to follow. So
well,
if
for example,
you are...
Sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay, go ahead.
Well, for example, if my file that I'm working on for the seller is assigned to a negotiator and it's been more than 90 days and the short sale transaction is not being processed, who could I turn to that is above the negotiator in your short sale department? Is there a particular name?
The first thing that you can always do if that negotiator is not answering the question, I'd be very upset to know that we have anyone that has not responded to you, first of all, because that's a huge requirement of mine is timely turnaround on any phone calls or emails that come in. But if someone is not responsive to you, you can always ask to speak to their supervisor or manager, and they should transfer that customer. They should transfer you to speak to that person. If you are still having problems, you can contact our 800 number, explain to them, especially if you have the authority and the loan number, if you have third-party authorization to speak to us, you can ask to speak to a manager of that department and you should be transferred. But worst case scenario, you can contact one of our HMCs that you may be working with. They know how to get in contact with our escalation team. It really depends upon who the investor on those properties are, because I think if you heard earlier, we have people all over the country, and I would want to make sure that that escalation, if you will, is getting to the right manager. So when in doubt, contact even one of our local offices and ask them to reach out to us, and they know the escalation path to get to a manager.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call. Next
Thank
question,
you.
operator.
Our next question comes from John. Your line is open.
Yes, I wanted to know, is there a certain timeline for a short sale approval? You know, from start to finish, from the beginning, when after all of the documentation that is required by the seller has been submitted, does Wells Fargo have a certain timeline to the approval process?
We do, and I mentioned this just briefly, but the less number of interested parties in the transaction, the quicker it's going to be. So if it is a Wells-owned property with only a first lien, no junior lien, and no MI tied to it that is owned by Wells Fargo, once that offer comes in, we order the value that we're required to order, and we can generally make a decision within 5 days. It becomes a bit more complex if there are other junior lien holders that are not Wells. A junior lien could be with a completely different mortgage company, and we are somewhat tied to their ability to respond to us and their decision on whether or not they're going to accept the short sale for their second lien. If you have an MI company that's involved and the servicer doesn't have the delegated authority to make the decision on whether or not that short sale can be completed, then we may have to go to the MI company. So the more third parties that are involved, the little bit longer it's going to take because it becomes more complex. Once we have all the documentation in from the customer, depending upon what's required, it can be anywhere from 5 days, if it's a Wells-owned, to about 15 days once all the documentation is in to be able to get responses from any junior lien holder or any third party like an MI company.
And just one more quick question. Okay, if there is, let's say there's no MI involved, is there does the seller have to be behind on payments in order to do a short sale?
We have to follow investor guidelines. So in most cases, what we find short sales, and most of you know this, short sales are usually pretty severely delinquent by the time they come to us. But generally, if a customer is not delinquent, they can show to us that there's a financial hardship and default is imminent. We can take a